Welcome to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson, show number 716. Today we're going to be talking about, kind of the spring cleaning aspect. Even though it's a little late in the year, many of us, of course, procrastinate, right? We don't get around to it. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of spring cleaning, bringing technology into the fold, of course, as we always do, as we are talking a little bit about what we can do in order to help improve things in our lives, in our families, or with our families, I should say, and in our businesses. We're going to talk a little bit about crowd video and how you can have a lot of fun with that when you are out and about with your kids at soccer games or professional games. We'll talk about life logging. Now, this is interesting. This is a completely new concept for many, many people, but it allows you to put your life together, be able to put it online, share it with friends, share it with yourself in 30 years. So that'll be kind of fun. We've got a couple of interviews left, too, about some cloud service stuff. Life logging is one of those cloud services, but we're going to talk about some cloud strategy integration here, evaluating cloud services, and then right back for the rest of the show into spring cleaning up our lives. We're going to be talking about consumer electronics, your upgrades, trade-ins, recycling programs that are available. We'll talk about some wireless tips for you. Delphi is going to join us, talking about new vehicle management diagnostics integration that they have a special deal going right now with Verizon. John Deere is going to join us, talking about lawn and mower care. If you ever wondered how people kept their lawns looking so good, it isn't just the Deere, as it turns out, that they might be using, the John Deere tractor, mower, etc. It turns out that John Deere has some other little tips for you here that'll help no matter what equipment you're using. We're going to be joined by Unroll Me, talking about cleaning up your email. Now, this is an interesting approach that Unroll Me has, and that is many of us are on mailing lists, and some of those mailing lists we don't ever really pay any attention to. So why are we on them? It lets you gather them, pull them out of your mailbox, look at them when you want to, unsubscribe from the ones you don't really care about. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to have to try that one myself. I haven't signed up for it yet. Robert Half is going to join us. Now, these guys have a lot of people that they kind of rent out, right? If you've been a contractor before, they also have a lot of, you might have worked for Robert Half. They also have a lot of information on jobs as they place people in different positions. So Robert Half Technology is going to join us, talk a little bit about workplace etiquette. So that's a little spring cleaning here for your job so you don't get fired. And then we're also going to talk about strategic planning here with forward metrics, some things that you can do to look forward in your life and put together everything. So that's today's show. Those are all of our guests, a lot of CEOs. And of course, we'll finish this show up a little bit next week as well. We have a few more guests. We'll talk about spring cleaning. Then we're going to get into some summer tips and some business tips. Now, I've had a lot of people who ask me questions, business questions. I've picked up a lot of clients from the radio show, people who call me with specific problems. Like I had one that has to deal with government agencies and had some problems with a former employee that was pretending to still work for the company. So we had to kind of straighten out that whole problem with their email and making sure that it wasn't being hacked and get them their own real domain and register it properly and put in some controls on it. So I have a lot of companies that ask a lot of questions that I help with. Some of them, my average client has been with me now for, I think it's close to 15 years. But, I'm always looking for new clients, new businesses that need a little help, usually in the 10 to 100 person category or desk category is usually where I'm at. But at any rate, I said all of that so I can say this. I have a whole new project in the works right now because of what some people have asked me, and that is information. Now, take what you put together on the show, Craig, and put it together in a form that's really useful to us as business people. So that's what we're doing. Give it a little bit of a heads up. It's going to take us some time to start putting this all together. But if you want more information, make sure you contact us. It's just producer@craigpeterson.com. Or you can send it directly to me, Craig@craigpeterson.com, if you don't want my wife involved here, a little liaison on the side. And we'll go ahead and keep you up to date. But I think it's going to be interesting. It's something no one else is doing out there. And it'll keep you updated on technology. And we're thinking about including things things about how to implement this in your business. But this is business focused. I've always been a business-to-business guy myself. Personally, we provide a lot of support to businesses for computer technical things, supporting the servers, the networks, their infrastructures, and sometimes even desktops. So this is going to be an interesting little project, so keep an ear out for that. You're listening to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson. Of course, you might be watching us as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, hello, as I wave into the camera. And you can find the links to the YouTube videos, to LinkedIn, all of the different social media sites, Facebook, and also Twitter, all the big ones anyways, on craigradio.com. So go to craigradio.com, click on your favorite social media and follow me. And send me an email if you think I should be on something else. For instance, I got a Pinterest account for the show. I did this months ago, but I've never really used it. My wife loves Pinterest. She uses it all the time. I just don't know. Should I be posting stuff on there from our guests, about their products and things? Maybe. I don't know. Let me know what you think. And always looking for a little bit of help if you want to put that out. And you can tweet me or Facebook me, or even send me a little YouTube video or audio, all of that sort of stuff. craigradio.com. Love to hear from you. Now, you're going to see, if you're watching me on YouTube here, my desktop. I'm going to go through some of the articles in the week, this past week, that you guys liked that I had posted. And I track all of the stuff when I post it on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn. And I know who's sharing it, who's liked it, gave it a thumbs up. And so those are the ones we talk about on the radio show. So they're likely to be the ones you guys like the most, and hopefully they are. So we're going to talk about new QR code technology. You might have seen these boxes with the little lines and stuff in them. Talk about how it's being used to save lives. We're going to talk about what Google has been up to here. They made a fake brain. Now, this is interesting because this ties into security. And we're using graphics cards now for things that were never originally intended, but that's what Google's doing too, so we'll get into that. Marissa Mayer, of course, you might know her, or Meyer, however you might want to pronounce her name. She has, of course, taken over Yahoo. We've talked a little bit about what she's been doing on the show. I posted a few things. You guys would like this because it's talking about what she's doing. She's remaking Yahoo. And I think the changes are for the best, by the way. Verizon's picking up a new phone. This thing is a number one phone out there, and it should be a leader for them. So we'll talk about what that phone is and what they're doing. And then the irrelevance of Microsoft. Their presentation that came in a slide deck here, a little bit about what is happening with mobile devices. And it's not just Microsoft that's become irrelevant. It looks like even in the mobile space, same thing's happening with Research in Motion with their BlackBerry. So we'll get into all of these if we have time today. Then we'll get into the interview section of today's show where we talk with some of these CEOs. But the first one here, QR codes, how a QR code could save your life. You can see this on my screen if you're watching this on Yahoo. And this is from Wired Magazine. It was written by Damon Lavrink, I believe is how he pronounces it. But it's very, very interesting because the German Automobile Club has put together some new labels, and Mercedes-Benz is doing this too. Now, these are QR codes. They're the square ones that have the little tiny squares inside. Microsoft tried to do their own thing with these little colored triangles, but they didn't go very, very far. QR codes are very standardized. It's wonderful. I use them quite frequently, frankly, when I'm looking at products. So you've got a QR code. The only way to read it and know what it is about, of course, is to scan it with a smartphone. And the smartphone app then looks up the URL or whatever it might be. So let's think about implications here when it comes to Mercedes-Benz. You guys know I was a volunteer EMT for a decade. Well, as a volunteer EMT, we would come on the scene of a car crash and we would have to deal with the issues you might expect to deal with, right? We're going to have to maybe cut someone out of a car, and that means cutting through some structural members sometimes, or sometimes it's as simple as opening the door. But we might have gasoline to deal with, diesel fuel, which is, of course, not a big worry for EMS because it's not about to explode, basically, which is what gasoline can do to you. But today we've got some extremely dangerous vehicles on the road, some of these wonderful hybrids that so many people like, and they can save gas and money, and that's a very good thing. But they've got high voltage batteries in them, particularly the straight electric cars, these plug-in hybrids as they're called. Well, those have now high current batteries. They've got now runs from the batteries up to the motors that consist of very big electrical wires, and you don't want to cut through these things. You don't want to have problems with the batteries. Are these batteries going to leak, potentially leak? What do they have in them? Do they have acid in the batteries, or is it something that's really not going to hurt anybody? Or is there, with some of the cars we've talked about on the show before that use batteries from laptops, literally laptop batteries, the Tesla cars, those, if they overheat from a short circuit, can explode, and there can be caustic stuff flying. It is nasty and scary. So here's what's happened. Mercedes-Benz has figured out a way to solve many of these problems. For instance, if you open the gas cap, normally you'll see a little diagram in there showing you the air pressure for the tires. Well, Mercedes-Benz has a QR code now. You can click on that, get full schematics of the car. And they've got the QR code in a few different places in the car. So now, instead of having to find an owner's manual, as though we would spend the time to try and do that, usually not, right? Or we try and go online to find it. Now, with a smartphone or tablet, we just snap a picture of the QR code. We've got full schematics. We know where the hazardous materials are, the high current lines, sometimes high voltage lines in the vehicle, and we know what to do during a rescue. So congratulations again to Mercedes-Benz for leading the way in safety. This is going to be fantastic. These are rescue sheets, and all you need is the QR code and a smart device, and we're getting more and more of those out in EMS, fire, police, etc. Good stuff. Listening to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson, going through some articles in the news this week. Then we're going to be talking about kind of spring cleaning for your life, your business, and things you can do during the summer today. In just a few minutes, we'll get into that. The next article you guys had more or less voted on this week is this one about Google. Well, about 4 minutes left here. Wow. This picture on my screen here, again, if you're watching on YouTube, is from the University of Toronto. The article is from Wired by Cade Metz. And these are some guys who have been working on something that's called the Google brain. And our brains consist of millions of tiny little neurons. They're all interconnected. You probably know the basics of how the brain works. Well, we've for decades wanted to have artificial intelligence, or maybe we didn't if you saw 2001 A Space Odyssey in Hell. But ultimately, it could potentially help us if we can control it and our robot masters let us. But here's the bottom line. These new graphics processing units that we find in our computers, including the one that I'm using for this radio show right now, those GPUs have in them thousands of processors, thousands of CPUs, and they can all work in parallel. Like, in other words, they can all work at the same time. So if you have your master CPU breaking up a problem into thousands of tiny little bits, hundreds of thousands of tiny little problems that can all be worked on individually by all these processing units, you now have something that mimics a brain in a very fundamental way, very rudimentary way. Now, those GPUs are also being used to crack passwords, and we can talk about that. It's probably a good subject for the show for some point in the future. Bottom line, by the way, on passwords nowadays, don't worry about special symbols. Don't worry about having numbers in them. All that old crap, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter anymore. With an inexpensive home computer now, they can process and crack 800,000 passwords a second. So what matters isn't that other stuff anymore at all. What matters is that your password is long. You need at least 11 characters in this day and age to have a secure password. So it can be a phrase that you love, because they're no longer using dictionary attacks. And that's what they used to use in the past. They had rainbow tables is technically what it was called. But make sure your password now is over 11 characters or over in length, and it can even be phrases. It's not such a big deal to use common words anymore. Anyhow, these guys are now using these massively parallel graphics processing units to kind of emulate a brain. The 50 of the planet's 500 fastest supercomputers now rely on graphics processing units. We now have Amazon, I think it is, one of these cloud vendors who can lease you graphics processing units, and you can now do incredible things incredibly fast, including incredibly bad things, but another story. Marissa Mayer, I mentioned her earlier. She's now turning Yahoo into an internet portal again. They've been buying all kinds of different properties, so that's kind of an interesting one. HTC One is going to be out on Verizon. This leaked here, so expect that fairly soon if it's not out already. And a lot of people really love that phone. They say it's the best Android phone on the market right now. And good presentation. I sent out a link to this earlier in the week as well on Microsoft and the rise of mobile. And basically, Microsoft is now irrelevant. So stick around. We are going now to a bunch of different interviews with our CEOs all about what's happening out there. What can we do for spring cleaning into the summertime right here on Tech Talk with Craig Peterson. Stick around. We'll be right back.